We are live. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Blake Ruffino. This is Are You Serious Sports? We hope that you guys are making it a good one. We know that we are as well. Huge show in store for you today, not tonight, as we normally go at 7 p.m. Central Time. We had to adjust our times. Got a lot going on today. The Saints game. I am currently doing daddy duties and watching my son Ben as he sleeps. So really and truthfully, some of the only time I could go live today would be at 1 o'clock. But it's okay. It is okay. We got a lot to talk about. The last couple of days during the holiday season, we did learn some things we will share with you today. So you're going to be wanting to stay in tune for the entire show. We got a lot to break down. So we will go over some staff hires and coordinator hires that we are hearing and potentially what Brian Kelly is doing. Some things we can't confirm, some things we can't. We'll tell you why he is possibly waiting on one coordinator, and you should hear some news relatively soon, or it could be as long as February, depending on how long this drags out. But we'll tell you why that is going on that we can confirm. Now, we will do – I was going to do a Ruffino's Rants. We'll see. We will see. We will see if we get too hard and too – we'll see if the Ruffino's Rants comes to pass. How about that? We'll see. Look, Brian, and this was more about what I was going to talk about, that LSU needed Brian Kelly more than Brian Kelly needed LSU, especially from an internal standpoint. People more than likely not going to be retained at LSU. So with that being said, I think the cleaning of this house what was best for LSU. We might talk some Saints pregame. Brian Kelly, speaking of Brian Kelly, will be at the Saints game tonight watching his former quarterback, Ian Book, make his first NFL start for the New Orleans Saints. So that'll be entertaining. I wonder if they will pan the cameras on him. Maybe they would get him in the booth or get him in an interview. We will see. We will see. All right, so let's get started. Let's get to a couple comments, and then we'll get rolling. Wallace Bourne says, today is I'm assuming he says B-Day, Blake. Just give me a shout out. Happy birthday. Justin says, I'm in here. Kelly says, hello, Blake. What's going on? Dion Black says the Saints game is tonight. That it is. So that is why we are moving the show up. Harold Wood says, on the road listening. All right, you might want to tune it up because things are about to get real up in this thing. Or are they? Goose Sports says, yo, and our good friend Craig Schilling says, we are live. That we are. We're going to get to a lot of your comments. We're going to get to a lot of LSU stuff very, very, very shortly. All right, let's do this. Let's pay some bills around this thing and then we'll get started. Do us a favor. If you're on Facebook, there's 241 of you already, at least what I can see on my end. Do us a favor. All 241 of you, do us a favor by hitting that like button and hitting the share. If you're on YouTube, listening to us on our YouTube platform, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and notification bell. We greatly appreciate it. If you're listening to us on the audio podcast or on Twitter, don't forget to subscribe and hit the follow and retweet button as well. We would greatly, greatly appreciate it. So let's pay some bills, and then we'll get started. None better than our good friends over at GM Varno & Sons at betonline.ag. Guys, with 64 years of experience, nobody is better equipped to servicing your vehicle than GM Varno & Sons. RV repair, big rig overhauls, motorhome chassis, routine maintenance, tire rotations, tire sales. No job is too big or too small over at GM. Give them a call today at 225-664-9992. That's 225-664-9992. Or go see them over at 2500 Florida Boulevard in Denham Springs, Louisiana. And our good friends over at betonline.ag. Yeah, there are some bowl games that are being canceled. Unfortunately, college bowl games being canceled. But it does not mean you still can't go place those bets. And the best place to do it being betonline.ag. Use the Believe 50 AYS podcast tab. That way that they know that your good friend Blake Ruffino at AYS sent you on by for that 50% welcome bonus. So you deposit $200, they will give you the 50% back of $100. It's betonline.ag. Betonline.ag. All right, let's get this thing rolling, y'all. Let's get this thing rolling, y'all. Kevin says, we are live, baby. Let's get it rolling. That for sure. Let's get it rolling. Mark says, daddy daycare today, hashtag girl dad. I am doing a little bit of the same as I am off today. A little bit. My wife is at work, so I am daddy daycare my damn self. But luckily, I only have one. Shamichael Thompson says, checking in from Wilmington, Delaware. First snow day of the year. Nothing too bad, but it was nice to see. I like it. At least it is currently 77 at the AYS studios. So yeah, I'd rather it be a little bit more chilly than what it is right now. Yesterday we had my wife's family over, and it was hot. We played cornhole. I got some cornhole boards for Christmas from my wife, just absolutely dominating everybody that came in my presence. But it was hot. I was wearing shorts and a polo shirt. Hot as hell. All right. One more comment and then we'll get started. Dion Black says, I got on my lemon pepper steppers. Let's go. For everybody who don't know what the lemon pepper steppers is, it's them Crocs. You got to have on them lemon pepper steppers. You got to have on them lemon pepper steppers. All right, I'm going to do my Rufino's rants, but we're going to do it later in the show. It's got a lot to do with what happened yesterday in the NFL regarding LSU. But let's get to some of these staff hires and staff updates and some of the things that we learned really over the past 3 or 4 days, last 72 hours, and some things that we can tell you. Let's start on the defensive side of the ball first with Matt Houston, the linebackers coach from Kansas City. Now, a lot of you are probably seeing today Dan Lanning, the head coach at Oregon, is putting his staff together. And some of those guys that he's bringing and putting a part of his staff, he just named his defensive coordinator, is guys that are from the NFL. Now, I want to make this very well known. And some news and some stories that I'm going to break today that we kind of kept hidden during the process. Some of my closest people and closest friends know this. But because we were really close to this situation, but I want to tell you why Matt Houston in the NFL for LSU, if he's going to be the DC, has not been named. So if you remember almost a year ago to the day, around the same time, Ed Orgeron and LSU was going after Ryan Nielsen after missing on Marcus Freeman. Now, Marcus Freeman, obviously we know, went to Notre Dame, told Colin Cowherd on his show, The Herd, that when Brian Kelly called him, he was coming to LSU to coach with Brian Kelly and run his defense for him unless Notre Dame made him the offer as the head coach. He had told Brian Kelly, and I'm quoting him, paraphrasing, that he had told Brian Kelly was coming, so now we're moving on. Now, sound familiar from a season ago? Yeah, it's a lot of the same things. So it's a lot of the same things that Orgeron did, but it's not that – it's completely different. Right? One guy got a head coaching job at a prestigious blue blood program. The other, just pushed him off, Marcus Freeman off to Derek Panamsky, and the rest was history. But I want to give you a little bit of relative understanding of what I've been told is what's going on, and this is something that normally goes on through the process. If you remember a season ago, Ryan Nielsen was a guy that LSU and Ed Orgeron was targeting, and lo and behold, not to get too far back into those details, but Sean Payton put a block on it. Ryan Nielsen was retained an associate head coach for Sean Payton, yada, yada, yada. We all remember that, but it was really close. Ryan Nielsen had agreed to become the new defensive coordinator at LSU, however, stayed in New Orleans. Well, the reason that Sean Payton and the Saints had a big problem with that, if you remember, was Ed Orgeron did not go through proper protocols and proper procedures when talking with Ryan Nielsen. Now, there's an unwritten rule and a written rule in the NFL that you do not reach out to coordinators or assistant coaches unless you talk to the head coach or you talk to the organization so that you can speak with and talk to said coach. Well, Ed did not do that. And I will tell you and break a little bit of news today, Ryan Nielsen was looking and we know this, I know this for an absolute fact, have been told from just putting it very, just understand it's not something that was sourced. It was something that was literally told me from the people that were involved in this, that Ryan Nielsen and his wife were looking into moving into Baton Rouge, as he had already told Ed Orgeron that he had accepted the job at LSU when Sean Payton did it. So if you're wondering what Brian Kelly is waiting on in the NFL, the unwritten rule that I just talked about is this. If a team is going into the playoffs or if the team is going to make a playoff push, coaches relatively don't really like nor will allow you to speak with their assistants, especially if they're a big-time coordinator or a big-time assistant. Now, that's not to say it won't happen. You saw coaches from the Jacksonville Jaguars are being poached, so to speak, or being hired to other universities. So are guys from Pittsburgh who are now, if I'm not mistaken, out of the playoff race this year. So it means that there's really nothing or a lot to play for anymore. And so Mike Tomlin and the Jacksonville Jaguars allowed those coaches to go elsewhere and to go into college. Now, the Kansas City Chiefs are something completely different. So here is some sourcing for you on Matt Houston. I was told that nothing formal has gone out to Matt Houston as of right now. Now, just because it's not formal does not mean that informal speakings and talkings and things like that have not happened. There are a lot of times when it's quote-unquote informal and not through the written rule is you reach out to agents, and those agents reach out to their clients and ask them if they would be interested. And then formally, you will do the interview and you will do a lot of things. Now, one thing that I do trust about Brian Kelly more than I trust anybody else in this process, especially at Orgeron, is, guys, he's going to put his good staff together. He's going to. And I know that a lot of you are upset about the Blake Baker news. You're upset about the Corey Raymond news. You're upset about this coach and that coach. And quite honestly, I understand. But at some point, and here is the Ruffino's rant part of this, at some point, and I feel like I'm preaching, everybody asking Matt Houston, Matt House. I said Matt Houston. Matt House, excuse me. I keep messing up his name. Matt House. Thank you for catching me on that, Matt House. But here is a part of the Ruffino's rants that I wanted to get into. Matt House, thank you. Sometimes I get going, I get rambling. I literally have my sheet right here, and I put Matt H, and I'm just reading off of it. So that's on me. I mean Matt House, for everybody asking. That is my fault. The linebackers coach for Kansas City. The Ruffino's rants is this. Did you see what happened in the NFL yesterday? Were you, when everybody was probably still doing some Christmas stuff, and you're doing Christmas stuff with your families, did you see and ponder what was going on in the NFL? So Jalen Ramsey is considered by some and most to be the best corner in the NFL right now. While that best corner in the NFL right now just had Justin Jefferson put over, I think it was like 6 catches, over 100 yards on that ass. Joe Burrow throwing for 525 yards. Clyde Edwards-Helaire truck sticking somebody, getting into the end zone. Patrick Queen still balling out. Braden Fehoko on special teams, knocking someone into oblivion like he was a part of Mortal Kombat. At what point do we sit here and we say, and to recruits that will listen to this, I hope somebody clips this and shows this to every recruit that is considering LSU as their school. At what point do you look in the NFL and you say to yourself, holy shit, look at all the talent that LSU produces, Louisiana produces, and what these guys are doing in the NFL. If you had any inkling whatsoever that LSU was a prestigious program. Now, I think we're buffering a little bit. Hold on. God dog it. All right. Let's unbuffer ourselves. Here we go. There we go. I see that we're buffering a little, so I'm trying to clean that up. There we go. But if there is any form of reason or as to why if you're a recruit, why you would be thinking or why you would ask the simple question of why you should come to LSU, look in the NFL. Look in the NFL and how it's scattered. I get that you got some guys from Alabama in there. They're not doing what the guys from Alabama outside of Stephon Diggs and maybe Najee Harris, they're not doing what these kids from LSU are doing. So when you ask yourself, why is Brian Kelly here? And you're asking yourself, what's going to happen when a good coach actually gets in this? What's going to actually happen when those guys are on the field with him? Now, the ultimate question is going to be, how does he coach in the SEC? And we'll see. I think he's going to be fine. But if you haven't heard this and you're still on the Ed Orgeron train, if you're still on the you liking Ed Orgeron, and I understand, I don't hate Ed Orgeron. I don't dislike Ed Orgeron as a human being. Just think he was a bad coach. Think it was a bad head coach for the last 2 seasons. But guys, there were people that did not want to come here and coach for Ed Orgeron. Ryan Nielsen, who's never been a coordinator, was about to be the coordinator. There's nothing wrong with that. He's a damn good coach. Damn good coach. But you want to know why LSU and Matt House, or Brian Kelly and Matt House, hasn't probably, if he's going to ultimately be the guy, has not been announced yet? It's because there's proper protocols and procedures that you got to go through, and you can't start pissing off NFL organizations and NFL head coaches, especially coaches like Sean Payton, who's in a midst of a playoff hunt, without talking to him. You can wait, because Durante Jones, and for the recruiting class that you were getting, Durante Jones wasn't, with all due respect to Durante, was not making or breaking your recruiting classes, your early signing day class a season ago. It just wasn't. He panicked. Brian Kelly's not going to panic, because if it's all said and told, if they played a game today and he had to be the head coach, he'd go defensive plays. He's telling people that. Guys, I've been a DC and I've been an OC. I've called plays as a head coach on both sides. I'm not worried about it. We're going to be fine. Dude's, I mean, look, he's just a good coach. So you got to get it through your head that LSU is a different breed of animal with good coaching in here. Now, we spent a lot of time on Matt House, so we'll get over to the offensive side. But I'm going to get to a couple comments, and we could do it here because we'll just get to the offense. We'll answer a couple questions, and then we'll get to the offensive side and OC. But Tyler Cormier says, #Ask Blake, is Ryan Nielsen off the table this year? I don't think he's even – I don't even think his name is on the table for Brian Kelly. It's not what he wants to do. It's not what he wants to do. Kevin said the Facebook feed's good. Yeah, sometimes because we're pushing out the 3 separate platforms, sometimes if one platform is acting Rudy poo, then yeah, it'll hurt us. The mayor on YouTube says that's why they got rid of Blake Baker. Maybe, guys. With all due respect, and I understand that Blake Baker's a good coach. I'm not saying he's not. Damone Clark also had a lot to do with Damone Clark's success. I remember, I'm old enough to remember when people complained about Micah Baskerville, complained about Bug Strong. Y'all, I mean, I remember that this season when you were complaining about it and those guys not playing well at all. Damone Clark also has a lot to do with his success. Not a shot at Blake Baker. He helped him. Sure. Got a good connection. Thank you. But we gotta get through this. We have to, as LSU fans, we have to get through this whole thing and whole bullshit about, keep this coach. Corey Raymond did not come in here and get Latarius Welsh from you. Sorry. He didn't. Also, if, I hear a lot of people talking about Denver Harris. Let's talk about the truth. Oh, Denver Harris was only coming to LSU because he loved LSU and wanted to be coached by Corey Raymond. Well, why in the hell is he not at Florida? If that's the reason, I don't want to get in that NIL bullshit because I'm talking to recruits right now, and I don't like getting in the recruiting world. I don't like talking to 17 and 18-year-old kids. Okay? I legitimately don't. But when I'm reaching out to very high-starred recruits and I'm asking them if LSU's in this game, and they're, and not LSU specifically, but I'm talking about LSU as a whole here, boosters of LSU, if they're contacting them and they're telling me yes. So what recruit are you talking to? Maybe they don't trust you well enough to tell you the truth. Anyway, Tony Williams says Damone Clark plays like an untamed, rampaging beast. Okay. All right. Jacob Herod says, I'm just worried, maybe worried. Kelly's not going to help us be an explosive offense, and we'll end up like Notre Dame. Jacob, let me say this. If we end up like Notre Dame, with all due respect, which we won't because of one simple and simplistic thing, it's called playmakers, I am okay with going to the playoff. I don't mean this in a wrong way. By the way, name a receiver from Notre Dame in the last 3 seasons that quite honestly was worth a damn. And that's, you can take it from a shot as a shot at Brian Kelly, but wide receivers don't want to go play in the cold, and they don't, with all due respect, they have academic issues of getting into Notre Dame. It's not me saying that. That's just plain facts. Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson does not grow in the state of Indiana. If those kids do grow up like that, they're playing basketball. Go look at the kids from Indiana. They're playing in the NBA and playing basketball. They don't play football like they do here. All right. We'll get a couple more, and then we'll get to offense. I see a lot of people in here asking about Ryan Nielsen. Look, I don't know if this is breaking news or sourcing, but legitimately spoke to parties involved here. Accepted the job, was worried about how Orgeron went about it, even told Sean Payton, from what I understand, Ryan Nielsen even told Sean Payton that he was nervous how Ed Orgeron went about it. The cockiness that he kind of had a little bit. That he can just come in there and do whatever he wants because it's LSU and Ed Orgeron. Guys, with all due respect, we talk more LSU than we do the Saints, and we'll talk some Saints here later on. But with all due respect, it's the NFL versus college football. In this state, LSU is bigger than New Orleans, bigger than the Saints. There's no question about that. I'm not saying that. You're tampering with billionaires. You're tampering with GMs and NFL head coaches. That shit doesn't end up well. So you want to there. Les and Ed did not have the proper way of going about things. So Matt House, if he's going to be the guy, which it looks like he may be, I don't know that yet. We're still waiting to find out more because it's kind of quiet to some extent. Some extent it's not. There's a proper way of doing things. And this whole you're LSU and you just because you're LSU and you can go do things does not mean you don't do it the right way. Our lanky lender, Brandon Hollingsworth, says Chase Claypool is about the only one that I can think of in the league right now. We had Will Fuller that was, 5 or 6 years ago, the first time that they made the playoffs. And guys, quite honestly, and don't mean this to a bad extent from Chase Claypool, but who would you rather? I mean, they're just not producing Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Terrace Marshalls. They're just not. Now, we'll see how that goes. All right, we can get to some offense. I have some people in here asking about some. And let me say this. Tony Williams says Clark will be a first round pick. Let me just say this. Let me just throw this out there. Do I believe Damone Clark will be a first round pick? I think he's got a chance if he tests well in the combine. Let's also be honest with ourselves here too. Guys, there's only 32 of those slots. You were 6-6. So I got to be a little honest to some of the media out here, okay, talking about Will Campbell, the 5-star tackle that just signed with you, being a day one starter and all this stuff. He's a bona fide first-round pick. Not only are you showing me that you don't know what you're talking about, and I don't mean this about Damone Clark specifically, but guys, there is a chance he falls out the first round. I mean, look, Patrick Queen is one thing. You also were 15-0. Not saying Damone Clark's not going to go in the first round. Linebackers historically there's not a lot of them selected in the first round. There's just not. I think Micah Parsons was the only one in last year's draft. And if I'm not mistaken, there was 2 last year or the year before that. I think it was Patrick. What was it? No, it wasn't even Patrick Queen. Yeah, it was. That would be 19. The 19. So Patrick Queen and I think Kenneth Murray. Guys, that's 2. That's 2. This isn't like a receiver or quarterback. There's only 32 of those slots. So people that use those analogies about talking about LSU, tell me why. Tell me why Will Campbell's going to be a first-round pick. I mean, a day one starter. It's not a slight at him either. Do you understand what you're saying about the SEC and a guy playing day one? The Brockemeyer kid from Texas, who was the number 1, number 3 recruit in the country last year, went to Alabama, was not a day one starter for Alabama. They had offensive line issues. Stop. But Damone Clark, as Jarrett says, Clark got snubbed. I do agree with that big time. Let's see. Leonard, everybody's saying Leonard has a good point here. It says Notre Dame's issues was depth of talent, not Coach Brian Kelly. I agree with that, which is why they play Clemson and Georgia close during the regular season, but not in the postseason. 1,000% agree with that. And they beat Clemson in the regular season. I don't want to hear that Trevor Lawrence wasn't there. Don't want to hear it. Legitimately don't want to hear it. Carl Alexander says, yes, Blake, I think we are all looking at a bit spoiled from personnel from the 2019 team. Look, BK is going to teach the fundamentals and structures in assignment football. Well, you better get ready for it, and that's kind of what you need and kind of where we're going to get to later. You know, like this whole thing that Brian Kelly, and we're about to get to the OC, but this whole thing that Brian Kelly's doing internally, you know, I'm hearing some things that some people were wiped out of the building a couple weeks ago. And some people were going to go through Christmas, get one more paycheck, and they were going to be out. You need a clean sweep more from not just the coaching staff, but people around you. There's people in that recruiting. Guys, there's no reason. Well, I'm going to leave that alone. I'm going to leave that alone. I'm not even going to go there. Blaine Smith says Chasson. Chasson's not. I mean, Chasson is a linebacker, but he's not. I'm talking about inside linebacker. I'm not talking about a guy that rushes the passer 99.9% of the time. That doesn't count for me. I call that guy an edge backer. I mean, he's not going out in coverages, and he's not an inside backer. But it's a good point, but no. On paper, sure. But other than that, no. All right, we'll go to the OC. This is going to surprise some people, and this might be what people panic about. Now, I got to be honest. Of the 2 names that I'm hearing right now, listen, I tell you this every year. I tell you this religiously every single year. And I hope it gets through to you. Just because I'm saying this right now does not mean when we get off at this show at 2:00 or 2:15, whenever we get off, it does not mean that this is not going to change. So just understand that. But the 2 names, one that we already know for OC and potentially is Mike Denbrock. Now, if it is Mike Denbrock, I still believe Brian Kelly's going to bring in a quarterback's coach. I still believe Brian Kelly's going to coach the quarterbacks. There are some names that are being floated around, some guys over at Louisiana Tech, some other pieces that are being thrown around of guys that could come in as the quarterback's coach. We'll see how that goes in or who the next OC is, and I think that's why they're waiting for that. We'll see on some of those position groups because I think that's going to be determined a little bit based on what happens with the OC and things like that. But look, you're less than 4 days away. We're New Year's Eve away, like the end of this week. But when these games are played on these two guys, Mike Denbrock being one who I would probably lean to a little bit more. But guys, I'm going to tell you something, and we kind of started breaking this news a little bit, and I probably went a little too soon, but it's starting to heat up. Well, actually, God dang it, we were the ones that broke it. I'll just leave it there. Is Georgia OC Todd Monken? So I'm gonna leave this here with Todd Monken. There are some people that I trust that keep bringing his name up. Now that they're not saying that he's going to be the next OC, they're not putting their stamp of approval on it. They're not saying it's him. They're just saying for us to keep our eyes on him because there's a lot of fundamental things that Brian Kelly likes that Todd Monken does. Before you say, "Oh God," and listen, I had to do a lot of research on this. Okay, so I want people to understand. There are some reasons why Todd Monken wants out. Apparently, Kirby, like he normally does, is hampering and tampering with what he wants to do on the offense. From what I understand, Todd Monken wants to throw the football around a little bit more. And apparently, Kirby's not letting him do it. Now, we'll see if Kirby lets him do it in the playoffs. Maybe they mend fences. I don't know. But those are the two names that I continuously are hearing. And I keep hearing from people I trust again to keep my eyes on Todd Monken and what's going to happen with Georgia. I'm going to be, and I'll be truthful with you here too. I do not, it's not a shoe-in for me that Georgia's beating Michigan. Until Kirby actually wins starts winning games religiously that that are tougher matchups, anything can happen with Kirby Smart on that sideline. Sure, win the regular season, win the SEC East, play some ranked teams that really aren't that great. I mean, great. They're good. They're not great. And then when you play a great team in Alabama, you get your shit kicked in. Just throwing that out there. So those are two names that I continuously hear. Now, I would go with Mike Denbrock. I think the power scheme and the running scheme that he runs, the stuff he wants to do in the spread offensive attack, the things he does in the passing game really fit with, I think, what would be better and more suited for LSU's offense, but I wouldn't be mad at either one of them. 1,000% would not be mad at either one of them. Anyway. Alejandro Escobar says, I think if Cincinnati somehow pulls this out and their offense goes crazy, that will make it tougher to pull him. True. True. But the only thing that I think LSU can do is that Cincinnati just can't do is I don't think Cincinnati is going to put up $2 million for OC. You know what I mean? Like I don't think they're going to throw, as the kids say these days, mad stacks of fat cash at Mike Denbrock. I think if LSU ultimately wanted him, they're not going to get outbid. Does Cincinnati pay $2 million for a offensive coordinator? Let me look this up. Let's see. Luke Fickell salary. Because here's the thing. Luke Fickell's only making $3.4 million a year. I don't see Cincinnati paying $2 million to get Mike Denbrock. You know what I mean? Could. Just don't see it. Bo Holly says, go there. I want to know what you're thinking, Blake. Well, you know what I'm thinking. Rick says, hashtag ask Blake, what are you hearing about Austin Thomas and the recruiting staff? I'm going to keep that one close to the vest. I think that some people need to be keep their head on a swivel. I don't know about Austin Thomas, though. T. Coon Cortez, maybe he does, maybe he's gone, maybe he's not. Tinkun Cortez says, don't forget about Gage at Atlanta and all the defensive guys they have in the NFL. Of course. Tyrann Mathieu being probably the biggest. Patrick Peterson. Guys, there's a lot of them. I'm just saying of recent note. Shit, Jamal Adams is still a beast. Trey White, who's injured, is still an absolute freak. So at what point, you know, I heard this, that Brian Kelly told somebody, you know, a pretty prominent booster, that he goes, listen, this recruiting process for me just got a whole lot simpler and a whole lot more relieving, that I know that I can go get 15 kids in this state every single year and say so many different things and point to so many different guys in the NFL. Like, I don't think people understand. Look, let me ask you this. How many times did Orgeron and Les Miles religiously pull guys from outside the states and bring them here that they didn't already have a connection with? Wasn't that much, was it? I mean, maybe you got your occasional Patrick Peterson from Florida. Maybe you got your occasional Jamal Adams. You got your Joe Burrow. You got to give Orgeron that. But I'm talking about religiously, of a class of 25, 90 to 95% of that is going outside the state to recruit, and you're going to the playoff. That's what Brian Kelly did. Half of his class isn't coming from inside the state. He's going to Kentucky and signing a 5-star tight end right under Mark Stoops' nose. Oh, but the SEC, right? Alabama couldn't get him. Alabama offered him and was the number 2 team. Notre Dame beat him out when Brian Kelly was there. Just telling you. Anyway. If I'm a coach, I'm going in there with the LSU shirt on my chest and saying, say, Big Daddy. Let's see. Damien says on Facebook, bold prediction, Cajuns will have the best record among college teams in Louisiana again next season. No, I don't believe that. Travis says, Alejandro. Billy says Michigan beats Georgia. Book it. I think it's going to be close. Carlton Reed says, why isn't BK going after his former assistant head coach, DC, Bob Diaco? He was there during those years too. Was that middle linebacker? I don't know. But I think it should tell you what we should be looking for and what kind of defense and what kind of front seven he's looking for. Odd fronts, being very multiple, can go with 4 guys with their hands in the dirt. It's going to be very Durante Jones-like. After, during the Alabama game and after, with all due respect to Dave Aranda, Dave didn't switch up his front seven very often. You got to give Durante Jones credit. He did. That's what they want to do. It's going to be multiple. You're not going to know. Here's a good thing about BK. You're not going to know what's coming. Dylan says, hashtag Ask Blake. There was an article on Todd Monken. He's turned down the LSU OC job. I'm hearing a little bit different. So, let me also say this to you, Dylan, and this is not a slight at anybody. They also said that Mike Denbrock cannot formally talk to Brian Kelly about the LSU OC job. How that's a lie. Mike Denbrock legitimately has talked to people from Louisiana about this job because he formally talked to Brian Kelly. Yeah. All right, let's get to a quick break. Stay here. We'll get to more of your questions and answers. None better than our good friend Richie Roche over at Roche's Lawn and Landscape and our good friend John Patton over at GMFS Mortgage. Guys, you got to give my friend Richie Roche a call today. My man literally just came over to my house a couple of weeks ago. We're doing some landscaping around our house, and he literally is going to show us a 3D scan of what our landscaping would look like and everything that we want based off the 3D scan that he did around our home. It's absolutely fantastic. Richie Roche at Roche's Lawn and Landscape, 225-937-7220. 225-937-7220. Tell them Blake Ruffino at AYS sent you on by our good friend John Patton over at GMFS Mortgage. Buying a new home, saving money on the mortgage you have now, or even doing that cash out refi. The timing has never been better. Get in touch with John Patton today at 225-614-1234, 225-614-1234. Tell him Blake sent you on by. All right. Paul Escon on YouTube says, how bad will LSU and Will Wade get screwed by the officials Wednesday night versus Auburn? Very bad. Well, they also don't like Bruce Pearl and Auburn either. So we'll see. I mean, how many times are they going to go after Bruce Pearl before they, So we'll see. I mean, Wednesday night's going to be very telling. First really good team LSU's. I mean, when I say really good, I mean really good. Not great, but really good team. Let's see how they do there. Damian says, we saw that, or we read that. Let's see here. Holden Lee says, you think they keeping Durante on staff or what, Blake? No, I don't. Right now, I don't believe so, but we'll see. Just curious on or Andre Carter. I already know Pete's going after the bowl game. Some people believe he might stick around, not as OC. We'll see. The mayor says, hashtag ask Blake, what about Tom Herman as OC? If he wants in as a head coach again, LSU may be his path. Look, I know some people. Some national writers, some national media members who religiously break news had a Tom Herman to LSU story ready. Then that kind of died down. But what an idiot Tom Herman is. For not going after Joe Burrow. I mean, that man just continues to show how freaking good he is. Everybody bitching and moaning and complaining about, them trying to run up the score. Well, they did it to us last year. Come on, man. This is the NFL. Elwin says Mike Denbrock's on the SEC network now. Yeah, I think that they're doing their media obligations. William Brent and who said that again? Now somebody knows why we're going on while we did. William Brent says LSU has the deepest players on NFL rosters on any SEC school. Bo Holly says, Blake, with all the talent we have here and lost to Bama, do you think BK and his staff can keep him in the state? I think that he can. Yeah, I do think that he can. Perry Mason. What's up, Perry? From the Orange Groves of America. Says, if Georgia does not win, what has Bowl Cut done? Nothing. He's won the SEC once. I mean, he's got to the playoffs a couple times. That's about it, Quinn says, do we want Monken's vanilla offense? I think what you're asking is, do you want Kirby's meddling offense? He says, to me, for the recruits Georgia gets, his offense is boring and very predictable. I think that's still a little bit more of Kirby. That's why some people said that he wants out. But look, we'll see. But just because somebody denies it in a public article, there's not him coming out and saying, I'm not taking it. He can always say the right or lie. And it's happened multiple times. Shit's happened to me. Now I sent him a screenshot. It's like, this you, bro? Blaine Smith, I love Ruggiero, the Wake Forest OC, to be our guy. We'll see. KC56 says, hashtag ask Blake, any info on 5 to 6 Notre Dame players transferring to LSU? Now, we said this last week. And so I'll just reiterate it, I guess, again here. I have been told that there are some players that might make their way from Notre Dame to LSU, yeah. Now, the numbers vary from different people. The Kari Gee, the 4 or 5-star safety, number 1 or 2 safety in the country last year, committed to Notre Dame, went to Notre Dame, is now in the transfer portal. Some people believe that he's going to make his way down to LSU. There are a couple. I heard that there's 2 or 3 offensive linemen that might make their way down because they were really wanting to play for Brian Kelly. And look, here's another thing. Brian Kelly's not also involved heavily in the quarterback position. He's also very involved at offensive line. And look, you can say what you want about Orgeron, but look what his defensive line did this year. Dion Black says Coach Ruffino for OC. Well, I mean, look, man, I'll just be honest. I've had the number one offense in the NFL in Madden over the last 9 seasons. Joe Burrow has won 7 NFL MVPs. We have won 6 Super Bowls. And see, here's the thing. I'm not like some people. I play on all Madden. So 6 of 9. He is the GOAT. We're on our way to winning another Super Bowl. So yeah. Joe Burrow, I think, has broken his own records. I think we threw 7,000 for 7,000 yards one year. Kevin says there's quite a few on linemen in the portal. Definitely need target several of those. Yeah, and some of them are going to be, some guys are going to transfer. You know, I keep saying this. If there's a guy at Notre Dame that I want that's got Louisiana ties, it's Logan Diggs, the kid from Rummel. Guys, that goes to show you how bad Orgeron was. I'm serious. They want that kid to play linebacker. Stupid sons of bitches. Craig Schilling says hashtag fire spectrum. Uh-oh. Y'all getting a little lag on y'all's end? Damn, son. All right, we'll end it. We'll make these 2 things the last time. We'll touch on the Saints last. Let me say this. In reference to this bowl game, I see a lot of people in here talking about the bowl game. Because Rick says hashtag ask Blake bowl prediction for Ian Book tonight with Saints. I think he surprises a lot of people in his debut. That's not the one I was looking for. We'll get to that last. Rick, we'll get to that last. Let me talk about something about this bowl game. And I think that this might make some people upset with me about this one, but I think some people need to know and hear this. Guys, I think once LSU's done with their bowl practices, the allotted practices that they have, I wouldn't be, I said this last week, and I said this on my last show. What was it, Thursday? And I'm going to reiterate it. There's some things that I'm hearing. Man, I don't know if LSU – look, I think LSU wants to play. I think Brian Kelly wants them to play so he can see what he has in the actual game. But, man, everybody gave their score prediction for this game, and everybody's talking about LSU winning 31-17. Guys, you'd be lucky if you scored 20 points. Guys, we're thin. I know people don't like me saying it, and I know some people go, Blake, show me the numbers and all this kind of stuff. Guys, the numbers are there. With a lot of these COVID outbreaks and testing, people that are asymptomatic, testing positive, and all this kind of stuff, the numbers that you have, transfers, guys that are still injured. You do realize Texas A&M had to have 20-plus players to have 40 eligible, 20-plus. And they were still in the high upper 40s. Man, I don't know if we're going to play in this bowl game. And as much as I want look, as much as I would want to see LSU play, man, I really don't. I really just don't want there to be any issues here, man. And I know, look, again, I want LSU to play. I want LSU to go out there and win. I'm not saying any of that. What I am saying is what the fuck does it really, excuse my language. I'm sorry. What does it really mean? Like, what does it really mean for them to run out there and play this game? Look, it's not going to help you in recruiting. You got the practices under your belt. I mean, yeah, maybe you get some game experience for some guys that doesn't have any. I understand it. But, man, you're risking a lot running out there. And I know there's a lot of people that say that when, LSU runs out there on the field, there's a lot to play for and yada, 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 yada. Yeah, in normal times, sure. This isn't normal times. This isn't a normal circumstance. This isn't a normal thing that you run out here and do. This isn't something that you're going to be faced with religiously year in and year out, meaning low numbers and COVID and opt-outs and all this kind of shit. But man, somebody's got to make sense of it for me. Because you run out there and you get a player hurt. God forbid somebody tears an ACL because he's exhausted and he's doing something he's not supposed to. I mean, bowl games just really don't mean anything anymore. I know people don't want players to opt out, and we love bowl season. Guys, I've watched as many bowl games as I can. Do I want them to play? Absolutely. Do I want the great players to play? Absolutely. I understand it if they don't. But when you're putting other kids at risk because you want them to play in a bowl game, it makes no damn sense whatsoever. Hey, you're about to go play 91 plays on defense. Good luck. Because I want to see you play. Come on, man. Vic Nettles Jr. says Muschamp would be a great hire for DC. Yeah. Quentin Lewis says, I agree, just not ready to be disappointed. For what exactly? Blaine Smith says bowl games are exhibitions now, not much of a statement. Playoff games are true games. I agree with that. Kevin says, yes, some people just have no clue. I agree. Chris English says, I honestly say shut it down, and let's get ready for next season. I'm okay with that one. Now, if this were a normal season, if this were normal circumstances, all right, like let's go out there and let's win one for the Gipper. But what are you achieving right now playing in the bowl game? Somebody's going to have to explain to me, it makes, it's LSU and you're playing a game and all this yada yada BS. It means zilch. I want somebody that wants him to play in this bowl game start listing me off reasons what it's really going to matter. Not this bowl game. Now, you go into the Tostitos Fiesta Bowl, you go to the Orange Bowl, you go to New Year's Six Bowl, that's different. Not the Patty Mayonnaise, Doug Funny, Cheez-It, Rudy Crew, Rudy Poo Bowl. I mean, there's more bowl games than there were teacups in Beauty and the Beast. Skipper Tally says, get rid of BS bowl games and use them as playoffs like D1. Maybe. We're about to expand to 12. But you don't want Akron playing. You don't want Akron playing Alabama. Kyle Decker says, or asked on Facebook, he says, hashtag Ask Blake, who you got winning the Natty? Unfortunately, I got Bama. Unfortunately. I don't think any three of those other teams can beat them. I think the only one that's got a shot is Georgia, but I think they're going to have to put JT Daniels in. I know people say, well, Stetson Bennett that, Stetson Bennett this, Stetson Bennett that. Stetson Bennett ain't going to lead you to a high-flying scoring game. God's got some skills. He can do some stuff. I understand it. Not saying he's trash water, not saying he's bad, anything like that. He ain't five-star quarterback JT Daniels. He ain't going to win you a game by slinging that son of a bitch 45 times a game. He just ain't. Before you say you don't know that, I just witnessed it. So the end of this week, I think Bama's going to smack the shit out of Clemson. Look, I hate Alabama, like HATE, hate Alabama. There are parts of me that wants to see them beat the dog shit out of Cincinnati. I'm tired of this group of five. Oh, UCF won a national championship. Bullshit. Cincinnati going to go up there. They're going to go get that ass beat. Georgia's going to have to, if Georgia beats Michigan, they're going to have to go in there. They're going to have to legitimately play keep away from Bryce Young. Hard to beat a good team twice, though. It's hard to beat a good team twice. Ask LSU in 2011. Hell, JT Daniels ain't even in Miami yet. Craig Schilling even points that out. JT Daniels is still not even in Miami yet. Caleb Bernard says the patty mayonnaise bowls. That's disgusting. I'm sorry. The patty. Patty, not panty. Patty. Hashtag Doug Funny. Caleb, you never seen Doug Funny? You never seen Doug Funny? All right, a couple more. We'll get out of here. Dion Black says skill-based matchmaking. Pooh Bear, what's up, Pooh? He says, hashtag ask Blake, do you see Cincy has the NFL's first 4K? Did you see Cincy has the NFL's first 4K passer, 1K rusher, and 2 1K receivers? Very interesting. The only constant on that, and LSU was the first one to do that too in 2019. The only constant of that was Joe Burrow, right? The only constant. The only one. All right, we'll get to a little bit of the Saints here. Look, here's what I'm expecting tonight. I'm really not expecting anything. Now, I think my wife and my sister-in-law are going to go to the game, gave them my tickets. I ain't going to that thing. Going to be funny. Going to be interesting to see Brian Kelly in attendance. What can Ian Book do? This could be a start of a new era. Now, Ian Book, look, he can run the ball, but he's a lot better of a thrower than Taysom Hill is. That's for damn sure. Is he ready? Saints got a lot of people missing from COVID. So if they win, I would be a little surprised because they have so many people missing. If they lose, I wouldn't be shocked. But I hope Ian Book goes out there and rips the shit out of it. Now, Miami can't prepare for what they don't know. So it could be to the Saints' advantage. Ryan Perkins says, what do you think about the Saints going to a 5-2-6 defensive scheme tonight without Davis and Quan? I don't know, man. Here's what I think. I think that you pressure Tua Tagovailoa, you get in his face, and you hit him all night long until he breaks. That's how people beat him. All right, last one. Michael on Facebook says, ask Blake, which high-profile recruit do you think LSU gets this year? I think that they get Harold Park. I hope that I'm going to put a crystal ball in currently. I'm not going to do that. Last one I did it, I lost. I hope that they get Harold Perkins or Jacoby Matthews. I feel more better about Jacoby Matthews than I do Harold Perkins, just being honest. Let's see. Blake, what is a 5-2-6? Some of the comments. Well, it wouldn't be a 5-2-6. It'd have to be a 5-2-5. No, it'd have to be 5-1-5, right? Yeah, it'd have to be a 5-1-5. I think it's what he meant. 5-1-5. Yeah, that's too many players on the field. 5-2-6 on defense. That's 13. Brandon Hinesworth says they better give the ball to Kamara all effing night. They better. I mean, he's going to have 35 touches for them to win at minimum. All right, we'll see you guys maybe tomorrow. We got some Christmas stuff to do. Maybe we'll do a Twitter Spaces in replace of it. But until then, guys, we'll see y'all soon. You'll have a good night. Or have a good day. Peace out, Girl Scouts.